What's going on, you guys? My name is Kyle. I'm a full-time futures trader and founder of the Power Trading Group, formerly known as Opinicus. I wanted to make this video just kind of going over a recent project that I've been working on known as the Autopilot Trader. This is something I'm actually launching through PTG, through the Power Trading Group. And essentially what this is, or what I set out to do, was automate one of my easier, more mechanical strategies. So for those of you that are familiar with the 2 Hour Trader framework, it is one of the easiest, if not, in my opinion, the easiest strategy. It is the easiest setup to master in both index products such as NQ, QQQ, ES, S&P 500, SPY, whatever index products you like to trade, as well as stocks and play. It works really, really well in stocks and play. And the goal here was to see if I could automate this thing to a degree where it required no user input whatsoever. And this was a project that started about 16 to 18 months ago. I started working on this with a developer. We have finally got to a point where it is actually generating the proper signals and it is actually executing the trades entirely on its own. So essentially the way that this works, and this was, I mean, like I said, months and months of trial and error. A lot of false signals were being generated. A lot of setups were being taken that were just not within the framework at all. So we had to do quite a lot of refinement. It made me realize as a discretionary trader how much of the discretionary aspect we actually utilize. When you start to get the definitions of your trading strategy down on paper and you actually work to make it more mechanical, it is, at least for me, it was quite a bit more difficult than I was expecting to be. Small, nuanced things such as, shape of candlesticks, how candlesticks close, proximity to certain levels or market structure developments. All of these things that we kind of process quickly as discretionary traders, it becomes much more difficult to get that into something that is actually code that a computer can understand. And so we're finally at that point. And so what Autopilot Trader does, which I'm going to shorten as APT. So what APT does is it looks for 2 Hour Trader framework signals on pretty much whatever ticker you load it up on, and it's going to be executing those trades. And the way it does that is it looks for the signal. Once it has the signal, it sets its entry, stop loss, and then take profit, and it sends those signals to your broker. Now, there's a couple other steps kind of within there. We actually take the signal that TradingView generates to a third-party signal processor, we'll call that, and then it hits your broker, and the broker actually then executes the order. What I'm using for this is Tradovate. That is my favorite futures broker. It is one of the more simple futures broker to use, and they have a lot of support for tools like this. And so essentially what you're going to see here on RTY, this is a short setup that triggered just this most recent Friday, September 12th. We can see the short triggers there. These little squiggly lines that you can see on the chart here are take profit. These are take profit levels. So it is hard coded to trade 3 contracts. And once each one of these levels is hit, it's going to peel off a contract. Now, after PT2 is hit, currently how it's set up, after PT2 is hit, a trail is set. So after that second target is hit, it can no longer, or it should no longer be a losing trade. Now, it's currently set up to run from 4:30 a.m. Eastern to 4 p.m. Eastern. So we're capturing most of open market hours with the exception of some of that overnight action. I did do some testing with the overnight sessions, and I did not see a lot of success with this particular strategy during some of those very, very early hours in the morning. The Asia market, the London market, you are going to see some setups that work beautifully during that time period, but on a very, very large sample size, it did not look the best. And so I did not want the thing running all night. Essentially, it automatically turns on at 4:30 a.m., runs till 4 p.m. And again, it's entirely hands-free. The goal here for me was to start working to kind of unshackle myself from the desk, if you will. I wanted to get less time involvement with the actual screens. And it's going to be a long process to get some of my other strategies actually automated. But this for me was a very, very good first start, because now when I am doing my discretionary trades, I no longer have to look for this strategy. I no longer have to take these trades manually. I just let the automation do all of it. And I know that win, lose, or draw, I had some exposure on that actual setup. So we can go through and kind of see a bunch of the signals here. And there's another short on RTY. So I actually originally built this and tested all of this on NASDAQ on NQ, which we'll look at in a minute. RTY is still it's still being proven. I'm still kind of seeing if the NQ code that we have works as it should on RTY. And for the most part, I would say it's about 85% to 90% there. But more than likely, what I'm going to end up doing is probably changing a few of the parameters to more accurately fit RTY's characteristics. The strategy itself does indeed work on RTY, but based on how the code is set up, it needs a few different parameters. And so this has been kind of interesting to watch and to tinker with, if you will, just kind of seeing the differences between NQ and RTY, and how automation, perceives them. Not that automation has any perception, but how it kind of reacts with, the code base, if you will. So it's quite a bit different than what we see in NQ. And I'll go to NQ in just a moment. Here's a trade right over here that you can see that actually did not hit either PT1 or PT2. And so this ends up taking the stop, and the stop just sets itself kind of above local structure. So it has a stop loss in there. The stop gets sent to the broker, the stop gets taken, and then there's actually a redundancy built into the code where if the initial stop does not get hit, there is what I call like an emergency stop. So it has basically effectively two stop loss orders that go through just in case something happens with that first one. If it doesn't go through or gets jammed up, the signal doesn't process, something like that, that backup is going to hit and actually make sure that the trade is closed. So I think of that as kind of like an insurance policy. So here's kind of an interesting one where a long trade was taken, a partial is peeled off. So one contract would be peeled off and then it ends up getting stopped out. So this would be two contracts that end up getting stopped. Now, this is a nice scenario because the stop loss ends up not being nearly as bad. The loss is not going to be as significant as if it still had the three contracts on. So I like that, but ultimately this trade is still going to be red. It's still going to be a loser, just not nearly as bad. So we can see some other action through here. Same story right here. This is a long that got taken where the second target doesn't hit, that gets stopped. Here's a long that gets taken, totally stopped out. Here's a short that gets taken, totally stopped out. So now you're looking at this and you're like, this is actually a scenario that is one of the more challenging aspects of automation, where as a discretionary trader, the main thing that you really have to do with this is leave it alone. Don't touch it. Don't touch it. And the desire to want to tinker with it, to want to make some changes when you see a day like this is there. You want to kind of adjust it, you want to override it. And that for me, number one, is not the point of automation, right? If we're just going to sit here at the screens, kind of babysitting the automation, then we may as well just be taking the trades on our own. Also, it means you have to physically be here and kind of watch it. And that was not the point of what I set out to do here. The goal was to completely remove myself from actually even watching these things. And before I can, fully see that goal, it's still going to be a few years yet. And honestly, I do actually enjoy trading. So I don't know if I ever want to completely remove myself, but a lot of these setups, I do think they have mechanical components, and a lot of them can be automated. Again, this was the first kind of foray into experimenting with that. So we can see how well it does. I mean, a lot of the times it's getting very, very good entries. It's exiting. I want to look at NQ here because NQ is what it was built for, and it tends to perform just much, much better on NQ. So this was Friday. I mean, this is just a beautiful long. Perfect entry, scales out into strength. Let's see what else we can find here. So this is post data. Signal triggers, does not hit target, just gets stopped. just get stopped. This is a scenario where it is getting involved quite close to data. I don't have it set up to where it actually monitors for data prints or anything like that. It has some filters built in for volume and choppiness. So it is going to avoid more choppy conditions. Because again, if you're familiar with the 2 hour trader framework, you know it tends to not do very well in choppier conditions. So I do have some filters built in to kind of limit its engagement in choppier conditions, which is very, very nice. Some of the earlier kind of pre-production versions that we had would just get chopped up like crazy because it was overly active. So we were able to filter a lot of those out. And this is one of those scenarios where it does get involved close to news. This is just after, I think this was PPI or CPI, and it ends up taking a stop. Now, I'm not, as of right now, I'm not going to put in any limits with news to where it doesn't trade the news or anything like that, simply because from what I've seen so far in the, not only the testing over the past year and a half, but also in the back testing that was done, which I'll touch on later, it's not really been an issue. So if there is kind of an emergency situation where an order does not get filled or there is a position that is open and news does hit, the best case to kind of mitigate that sort of situation is to have broker set daily loss limits. So within Tradeovate and within a lot of popular brokers, you can just go in and set a hard daily loss limit where the broker will actually liquidate you if you hit this value, if you hit this drawdown limit. And so that is honestly going to be the best way to kind of avoid, really just hedge, if you will, hedge against risk of any sort of catastrophic issue. Because when we think about automation, that is one of the things that as a discretionary trader, you may not think about, because your assumption is that every order is going to go through. Every order is going to get executed. I have seen some issues where orders either don't hit the broker for one reason or another. I mean, this is technology. Technology has issues all the time, or it just does not get filled. Like there's just some little catch that does not enable it to actually push the order through. Now, this does not happen all that often at all. I would say less than 1% of the time. But if you have, I mean, just kind of thinking of worst case scenario here, if you have a big trend day lower on some news and an order doesn't get filled and you don't have, a maximum daily loss limit, you're going to be looking at a very, very large drawdown. And so one of the challenges with automation is to make sure that you have these kind of what I like to think of as insurance policies built in to your actual broker, just so that we're not letting the computer go absolutely crazy with, either our live cash account or some prop account or some prop funded account. So that's kind of one recommendation that I have. If you are doing any sort of automation, you want to set that hard broker daily loss limit in there. Another thing to think about is kind of what I touched on earlier. There are different emotions that come up when you're actually having a computer trade for you. When you see that the computer is, maybe it's having a red day, maybe it's having a red week. It hits you differently than if you are a discretionary trader and you're making those decisions on your own. It's a very, very different feeling, and it's something that I was actually pretty surprised by. I didn't think there was going to be any really emotional response to how the bot was trading, how the automation was trading, and there definitely is. There definitely is, and it's a different feeling than what you'll notice with discretionary trades. And again, once you start to see that, there is a bit of a desire, at least for me, to want to tinker with it, to kind of want to mess with it, to kind of want to jump in, maybe override a little bit. And really you have to fight that. You have to trust the law of large numbers when it comes to automation. So let's look at some more of these trades here. This was another tough day. I remember this one where it has the long PT1 and then stopped out, PT1 stopped out, not even PT1 stopped out. So 3 valid signals that just don't show follow through. That's just the nature of trading, right? Here's a nice day. Almost hits PT3, almost hits PT3 again. And remember, after PT2, it sets a trailing stop. So after PT2, it's a guaranteed win. This is really nice. Hits PT3 on this one, hits PT2. This one hits PT3. Beautiful, beautiful. And this, again, remember, this is all hands free. all hands free. So the signal gets generated through TradingView, and then look at that nice one, PT2, and then goes to a third party signal processor that we're using. And then from there goes right into your broker, in my case, TradeObate. Here's a scenario where it's just two losses. All right, kind of unfortunate, but here's another nice one where it's just PT2, PT2, PT2. Beautiful. Love it. Making money, right? Fully hands free, making money. Now, I did do some back testing with this, very, very light back testing. It was from March 2023 to March 2024. I'm pretty sure right around that time period. And it did something like 755 or 955 trades. I have it on the website here. Yeah, 955 trades, hit about a 74% hit rate, making money, right? So that was beautiful. And it kind of confirmed what I already knew about the strategy. This was not something that I was really pursuing heavy back testing with, simply because with back testing, at least in the algo world and the automation world, from what I've seen, a lot of these guys that pursue automation, pursue algorithmic traders, were not discretionary traders first. So for me, it's a little bit unusual because my background is discretionary trading and my goal is just to automate some of my discretionary trades. So if I already know one of my strategies has edge, has positive mathematical expectancy, then you can imagine that, yeah, I'm not all that interested in backtesting just because I already know it works. I mean, I've been trading this particular strategy for the better part of 10 years. And so it's not like a mystery, like, oh, does it work? I know it works. It's just a matter of, can I automate it in a way that is what I would actually be looking at from a discretionary perspective. And again, I think we're finally there. So this thing, I have it set up to a prop account. I have a live account set up with it. I know Mish, our community manager in the Traders Thinktank, has a XFA through Top Step set up with it. That had a nice green week. Look at this particular day, PT2 all the way up into PT3. I mean, this ends up being, depending on where it entered around here, this ends up being a very, very big trade. 102 points. Here's another one. 45 points. So this is just kind of looking at the recent action. It does run on the 2 minute. And again, this is NQ. It can trade micros, which is really nice. So basically it gets its signals from NQ and then just crosses over to micros, which is beautiful. And you could see it's not like super active. Oh, this day was absolutely massive. This day was huge. I remember this day. Yeah, so this was actually a day where the PT3 did not get filled. PT3 did not get filled. So I ended up having to, this was one of those situations where I actually had to manually intervene. And thankfully it was a profitable trade, but I had to close this thing out and ended up closing it out way up here. But again, another very, very nice setup that it catches the little boost through there on the news. I mean, look at the action, right? It's nice. It's nice. It looks good. PT3, PT3. This one would have been a loser actually. And then PT3, PT3. So on a more volatile day, it's cleaning up pretty nicely here. Same thing. What is this? Wednesday, August 20th, PT2, PT3, PT3. So you kind of get the gist here. It's not, I'm happy with where it's at. It's not super active. I do think it could be a little bit better, but there is a thing in the automation world known as overfitting, where you tend to kind of want to tinker with it until you have like perfect results that fit every single scenario, and that's just not, it's not real life, it's not reality. And so you just kind of have to get it like good enough, honestly, for lack of a better term there. You just need it to have some positive edge, some positive expectancy, and then just set it free and see how it does in a live environment. Look at this really nice day. This is typically going to be called a choppy day by a lot of people, and this thing is just, it's cleaning up nicely. PT3, right? Does not hit PT3 here, but a really nice PT2, PT3, PT2, and then this last one gets stopped. But these are all signals that get generated. Like I said, profit targets, all done, trading view, and then it gets ported over to TradeObate. So let's actually look at the results. Just show this past week here. Now this, again, it's trading RTY and NQ, and I'm a little bit undecided on RTY if I want to keep it. For right now, I am going to go ahead and keep it, but we can see that It had a $3,500 week, right? You take out the fees and commissions there, and we're looking at $3,000 on the week, 70% hit rate. It's pretty good for not doing anything, literally not doing anything, entirely hands free. Now, what I found pretty interesting is that if you actually segment this and we want to add a filter just to let's just look at NQ versus RTY. So NQ on its own does much better. You have way less fees and commissions and it's at 3,700 for the week. It actually gets a little bit red there on the week, but recovers nicely and 81% hit rate. That's nice. That's nice, right? I love it. I love it. Now, if we actually look at RTY, RTY tells us a little bit of a different story. RTY is actually red, 52% hit rate. So I'm going to leave it up for a couple more weeks. We'll see how it does. Maybe it's just having a tough couple of weeks, but if this sort of action continues where it's just red week over week, even if it's just very light, more than likely we'll pull it off or just take it down out of RTY for a bit and then go ahead and adjust the parameters like I had mentioned earlier. But overall, that's the Autopilot Trader. Just want to give you guys an update on this little project that I'm working on. We do have it available, so it's available to a maximum of 250 people right now. If you want to check this thing out, we did do a pre-launch for 1,500 for the first 50 people. That sold out in 48 hours. So that's no longer available. But if you're watching this video before November 1st, you can grab our launch pricing for 2,500. Basically what this includes is an annual license, a yearly license to APT. You're going to get the current version as well as all future updates throughout the year. That may include some additional strategies if we actually have the time and research power to get those strategies launched within a year. That is TBD. Not going to make any guarantees on that. If you decide to stay for the next year, your price is locked in there, so you don't need to pay what is going to be in the future a higher price. A higher price is going to go up to 5K and then up to 8K. And again, right now we're hard capped at 250 people. So I suspect this 2,500 is probably going to fill up before November 1st. So we may not even see these higher prices, but that's where we're at right now. Just wanted to update you guys on something I've been working on, a little bit of automation. It's been fun. It's been a good time. It's been really interesting to see. I do think it's actually helped my discretionary trading in a big way because it makes me think more mechanically and more methodically about a lot of my setups. And this is kind of the next push that I'm working on here. Some lifestyle changes are coming up. And so I want to pull myself from the charts a little bit. I want to not be so shackled to the screens, and this is perfect way to do that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of overview of what we're working on. This is the Autopilot Trader. My name is Kyle. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in a comment down below or just check out the site. I'll post a link in the description. You can come and check this out. We do share a lot of updates in the Traders Think Tank. We have a tab there, an automation tab, where I'm sharing daily updates about what the bot is doing. If you end up signing up for APT, you do get access to that small section of the community, the automation section of our Traders Think Tank community. So you can kind of stay updated on what's happening. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.